Okay, the PlayStation 3 era for JRPGs is weird to look back on. You had one console generation where everything broke. The old formula stopped working, money got expensive, HD development chewed through budgets like nothing, and instead of playing it safe, developers just went feral. So we're counting down 19 games that basically rewrote what JRPGs could be. Some took massive swings and nailed it. Some swung so hard they became cult classics that maybe 5 people understood. Some proved that throwing infinite money at a game meant nothing if you forgot to make it fun. This is the PlayStation 3 JRPG retrospective. And yeah, we're going deep.
Number 19, 3D Dot Game Heroes. We're ending with a game that's basically a love letter to 8-bit games, rendered in 3D voxels. 3D Dot Game Heroes is a charming action RPG that looks like someone took The Legend of Zelda and pixelated it in 3D. The aesthetic is immediately distinctive. You're exploring a world that looks like it was built from building blocks. Everything's voxel-based. It's blocky, but beautiful. It shouldn't work aesthetically, and yet completely does. The gameplay is Zelda-like. Dungeons with puzzles, bosses with patterns you need to learn, exploration where you find secrets and shortcuts, heart containers that increase your health, swords that get progressively better. It's not breaking ground. It's celebrating it. It's an homage game that actually understands why the original formula works, and that's the point. The game is saying, retro design is cool. Let's make something modern that honors that aesthetic and mechanical philosophy. And it works because the developers clearly loved making it. You can feel the passion in every design decision. Combat is simple but satisfying. Exploration is rewarded. Find secrets, find upgrades, get stronger. Difficulty is balanced. It's a complete, well-executed game that respects your time. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not trying to be a 100-hour epic. It's a focused experience. It's Zelda adjacent, so if you've played Zelda games, nothing's surprising. It's familiar, but comfort in familiarity is sometimes underrated. Sometimes you don't want innovation. Sometimes you want competence and charm, and 3D Dot Game Heroes delivers both.
18. Atelier Totori, The Adventure of Arlen. Atelier Totori said, let's not save the world. Instead, you manage a small-town alchemy shop. You've got time limits. Days pass. You gather materials, synthesize items, complete requests for townspeople. It's cozy game design in a JRPG. And that sounds boring on paper, until you play it and realize the time management creates tension. You only have so many days before the deadline. Do you grind for materials or do you take on requests? Do you help this person or that person? The story is character-driven, personal. You're not fighting ancient evils. You're helping townspeople with problems, building relationships, running a business. Your character, Totori, is trying to find her missing mother while managing an alchemy shop. It's domestic stakes in a genre obsessed with world saving. And that's revolutionary for a genre obsessed with apocalypses. Atelier Totori proved that low-stakes narratives could sustain 40-plus hours without feeling boring. It proved that you didn't need world-ending threats to create meaningful gameplay. Combat is serviceable, but not the focus. The real game is time management and alchemy synthesis. You're discovering recipes, gathering ingredients, crafting items. And if that sounds boring, try it. It's weirdly satisfying. There's a flow to the resource gathering and crafting that's almost meditative. It's slow, requires patience. If you want traditional JRPG pacing, dungeons, bosses, story progression, this isn't it. But if you want something different, something that respects your time in a different way, this is exactly that.
Number 17, Star Ocean, The Last Hope. Tri-Aces Star Ocean, The Last Hope is a space opera JRPG that swings for the fences. Real-time combat system that's fast and responsive, deep character customization, multiple endings, like legitimately multiple paths based on your decisions. A sprawling story about humanity's place in the universe and whether we're destined or free. It's ambitious in scope. The game's got charm. Characters are likable. Combat is fast and satisfying once you understand the systems. If you're into deep customization systems, there's a lot to dig into. You're managing skill trees, equipment, crafting systems, character builds. It's not Final Fantasy VII level customization, but it's substantial. Here's the thing though, it's not exceptional. It's good, competent, well executed. but not revolutionary. It exists in this space where it's underrated by people who haven't played it, but not talked about much because it's overshadowed by bigger franchises. It's the tri-ace game that people forget about when they're talking about PS3 JRPGs. It's long, pacing can drag, especially in the middle section, and if you're not into space opera narratives where you're space colonists trying to save humanity, the story might feel disconnected from your investment. But for what it is, it's solid. It's a complete experience that doesn't overstay its welcome despite being 60+ hours.
Number 16 is Eternal Sonata. Eternal Sonata is weirdly charming and built around a thematic concept, Chopin. Frederick Chopin, the actual historical composer. The game is loosely inspired by Chopin's life and philosophy. It's got classical music atmosphere throughout. The story is about dreams. It's whimsical and strange and visually distinct. The world has this ethereal quality. Things don't always make logical sense because you're not sure if you're in reality or a dream. Combat is action-based, turn-based hybrid. Characters have abilities, you manage positioning. It's engaging without being demanding. The system doesn't ask much of you mechanically, which lets you focus on the narrative and the musical atmosphere. But what makes Eternal Sonata memorable is the aesthetic. The music literally shapes the narrative. There are musical motifs that repeat and evolve. The art style is watercolor and soft. The narrative philosophy is that everything happening might be a dream. You're never quite sure what's real. The story doesn't have massive stakes. Nobody's saving the world. You're on this journey that feels personal and small scale. That's refreshing in a genre obsessed with apocalypses and world-ending threats. It's a story about a musical genius on his deathbed, dreaming, processing his life. The story can feel slow, combat's not particularly deep, and the Chopin inspiration is more thematic than actually integrated. It's not like you're learning about Chopin's actual biography. But as an artistic experience, it's solid. It's a game that trusts you to sit with its aesthetic.
Number 15, White Knight Chronicles 2. Level 5 had an ambitious goal: make a massive online JRPG for consoles. Not a spiritual successor to MMOs, an actual MMO-style experience on a home console. They partially succeeded. White Knight Chronicles 2 was their swing at an MMO-style experience. Multiple players, cooperative dungeons, persistent world elements, big knights you pilot in combat for massive damage. It's weird and ambitious and kind of beautiful in its failure. The sequel improved on the first game significantly. Combat was faster, mechanics felt less clunky, the UI was more intuitive, and here's the kicker: it included the entire first game on the disc, so you got 2 full games for one purchase. That's value. That's confidence in your product. The online components were genuinely interesting if you had friends to play with. Night combat was flashy and fun. There was weird charm to the whole thing. You're running around this fantasy world with actual people. It's not seamless. There's lag, there's awkwardness, but it works. But it never became massive. The install base was too small. It existed in this weird space between single-player JRPG and MMO, and ultimately didn't fully commit to either identity. It wanted to be both and kind of failed at being one coherent experience. It's dated now, the online infrastructure doesn't exist anymore, servers are gone, but as an experiment in bringing MMO design to consoles, it's underrated. It was ahead of its time, honestly.
Number 14, Folklore. Folklore is a PS3 exclusive that absolutely flopped commercially, but nailed critically. It's an action RPG with dual protagonists. You choose Keats or Ellen, and their perspectives on the same events shift the narrative completely. You're seeing the same story from 2 different viewpoints. Monster-catching mechanics meets action combat. You're soul-stealing creatures from Celtic folklore and recruiting them to fight for you. And the story? Built entirely around Celtic folklore. It's got atmosphere, thick atmosphere. It's got personality. The art style is distinct, dark, moody, atmospheric. Characters actually matter and aren't just plot devices. Keats is trying to uncover his identity. Ellen is searching for her mother. They're intersecting narratives that collide and diverge. Here's the tragedy: it did everything right creatively, but it was too weird for mainstream audiences and too niche for hardcore gamers. So it sold poorly. 2 planned sequels got canceled before they even started development. The game got forgotten.
Game Republic, the developer, never really recovered from this commercially, which is criminal. Because Folklore proves you can make a weird, unique JRPG with specific cultural inspiration and have it be good. It's proof that you don't need to chase mainstream appeal to create something meaningful. It's a cautionary tale. Sometimes good games fail for marketing reasons, not quality reasons. It's proof that the gaming industry doesn't always reward creativity.
Number 13, Trails of Cold Steel 2. Trails of Cold Steel 2 is a turn-based JRPG that understands narrative continuity in a way most sequels don't even attempt. Most games treat sequels like standalone experiences. They give you recaps, previously on screens, mechanics tutorials. Cold Steel 2 says, nah, you need to have played 1, and not just mechanically, story-wise, character-wise, emotionally. The game picks up immediately after Cold Steel 1's ending. No recap, no previously on screens, you're thrown into consequence. Characters remember what happened. The world has changed. Relationships have evolved, and some characters you cared about are gone. That's a bold narrative choice that respects player investment. The tactical combat system is balanced. School-based social sim meets strategic battles. Not demanding in the way Valkyria Chronicles is, but engaging enough that you're not on autopilot. You're actually thinking about positioning and order of operations. And the social bonds you built in Cold Steel 1, they mechanically strengthen your party in Cold Steel 2. So every relationship decision you made in the first game has mechanical consequences in the second. Here's what matters. Falcom understood that PS3 had an install base of people who wanted long-form narrative. JRPGs that respected time investment. JRPGs that said, if you're willing to commit 150 hours across 2 games, we'll give you a story worth your time. Cold Steel 2 is that experience. The downside, you need to play Cold Steel 1 first. Both games combined are 150 plus hours easily. Not for casual players, but if you commit, the payoff is real. By the end of Cold Steel 2, you've been with these characters for longer than you've been with most people in real life.
Number 12, Tales of Xillia 2. Xillia 2 is a direct sequel that made the controversial choice, let's make a sequel to a game people liked and improve it fundamentally. The combat is more refined, faster, more responsive. The pacing feels tighter. Character development is deeper. Not just stat growth, but actual narrative development. The story actually has personal stakes beyond save the world. The main character, Ludger, is dealing with actual debt, not metaphorical debt. He owes money, and you make choices about who to help and who to sacrifice for money. That's a different narrative tension than usual JRPG stuff. But the game reuses a lot of assets from Xillia 1. You're fighting in the same environments, dungeons are recycled. At first glance, it feels cheap, lazy, like Bandai Namco cut corners. However, the Xillia 2 team seemed to understand this criticism in advance, and so they went deep with character-driven narrative to compensate. It's not about saving the world. It's about personal relationships and the weight of your choices. That shift actually resonates emotionally in ways the first game didn't quite achieve. By the end, you're not thinking about how much you recycle dungeons. You're thinking about the people you abandoned and the people you saved. The philosophical messaging can feel preachy at times, especially in the back half when the game gets philosophical about free will and predetermined fate, but mechanically, it's better than Xillia 1. The combat feels sharper, the progression feels earned, so it becomes the definitive Tales experience of the early PS3 era. Not revolutionary, but refined.
11. Odin Sphere, Leifthrasir. Odin Sphere is technically PS2, but we're talking in PS3 context because of the Leifthrasir remaster. And here's why it matters. Vanillaware is an HD-era anomaly. While everyone else chased 3D graphics, polygons, shaders, cutting-edge rendering, Vanillaware looked at HD development and said, we're doing 2D hand-drawn animation. Gorgeous 2D hand-drawn animation. Odin Sphere is a 2D action RPG. You move left and right, you fight enemies, you collect items. Pretty standard side-scroller stuff on paper, but the artistry is ridiculous. Character animation has weight and fluidity, background details tell stories, visual effects feel organic, every single frame looks painted. And I mean that literally. The game was drawn and animated by hand with layers of detail that most HD games don't even attempt. And the story? Shakespearean in scope, multiple perspectives across different protagonists, feuding kingdoms, doomed romance, political intrigue, class conflict. It's a full narrative wrapped in a side-scrolling package. You're getting Shakespearean drama told
through 2D action sequences. The pacing shifts between action and story naturally. It's a masterclass in blending narrative and gameplay through presentation. The actual gameplay is solid, but not revolutionary. Combat can feel repetitive if you're not careful with enemy variety. Some areas drag, especially late-game dungeons that feel like they're testing your patience. But you're not playing Odin Sphere for mechanics, you're playing it for presentation. And the presentation is masterclass. When you see a new area, you stop and just look at it. The art design deserves that attention. Leifthrasir improved combat, added new content, and basically rebuilt the game for modern hardware while keeping Vanillaware's art direction intact. It's the version to play. The downside, it's slow-paced, requires patience. If you're jumping in expecting fast action gameplay, you'll be disappointed. But if you want to be immersed in hand-drawn gorgeousness, this is it.
At number 10, Disgaea 4, A Promise Unforgotten. Disgaea 4 is the definition of hyper niche. This is a game designed for people who want a tactical RPG deep enough to sink 200 plus hours into without blinking. It's grid-based combat. You move units on a grid, attack from ranges, manage elevation, standard tactic stuff, right? Except everything can be customized to an absurd degree. Items have levels, characters have levels. You can throw characters at enemies. You can have characters stand on other characters to gain height advantage. You can chain attacks across the map, and the systems are stacked. Status effects, damage multipliers, elemental advantages, attack combos, weapon triangle advantages, class-specific abilities. It's a flowchart. You need Excel to track all the interactions, and that's intentional. Nippon Ichi Software designed this for people who want depth, real, mechanical, system-breaking depth. But here's why it works. The game rewards understanding. Once you grasp how these systems interlock, combat becomes this beautiful dance where you're orchestrating chaos. A well-executed turn feels like conducting a symphony. You're not just attacking, you're combining elements, stacking multipliers, creating scenarios where one turn of setup leads to a chain reaction that wipes an entire map. And the humor? Dark comedy. The protagonist is literally a demon who becomes a tyrant. The supporting cast is absurd. There's this tone of, we're not taking this seriously, so you don't have to either, which makes the mechanical depth feel less intimidating. You're playing this insanely complex system, but the game's winking at you the whole time. The story's episodic, so you can dip in and out without getting lost. Perfect for a game demanding 200 plus hours. But if you're not into tactics games, this is impenetrable. The difficulty curve is brutal, and some of the late game mechanics feel like the developers were just flexing on how far they could push complexity. Number 9, Tales of Xillia. Tales of Xillia is the Tales series learning how to be a PS3 game. The series had been on PS2 forever. They knew that formula. But HD development is different. Budget's bigger, player expectations shift, so Xillia made a choice. Streamline. The linear motion battle system had been in Tales forever. Xillia refined it, made it faster, made it flow better. It's not as demanding as Grace's F, but way more engaging than earlier Tales games. Narratively, you choose one of two protagonists to play as. It's not a full alternate timeline, but the perspective shifts. You see the same events from different angles. That structural choice rewards replays. Here's what makes Xillia matter. It's the bridge. The Tales series was struggling to figure out HD development. Xillia said, okay, we're keeping what worked, improving what didn't, moving forward. It's not groundbreaking, it's competent. And sometimes competence in execution is underrated. The world is charming, characters are likable, combat has enough depth that it's not button mashing, but enough accessibility that it's not oppressive. It's balanced. That balance is what made it a bridge for the franchise.
Number 8, Resonance of Fate. Resonance of Fate is a cult classic for one specific reason. It's designed to be difficult. Not fun difficult, I'm going to make you suffer difficult. It's a turn-based tactical RPG with a gun-based combat system, and the damage system is complicated. You have to inflict scratch damage first using machine guns, then convert that to direct damage using pistols. If you don't complete both steps, the damage is negated, completely wasted. So combat turns into meticulous planning. You're rotating characters, managing resources, trying to chain hits into combos, and if you mess up, you're starting over. And world progression is tied to an energy system. You collect hex points from combat, spend them to progress. It creates this loop where exploration and fighting are gated by resource management. Here's the kicker. This game is notoriously hard.
People debate whether it's unfairly hard or just very hard. Doesn't matter. It's one of the hardest JRPGs on PS3. Casual players avoid this completely, but the people who get it, they're obsessed because the mechanical depth is insane. Every encounter is a puzzle. There's an aesthetic to the steampunk world. Characters develop chemistry through combat situations. That cult following, that's the point. This isn't a game for everyone. It's a game for people who want to be challenged deeply, thoroughly, punishingly.
Number 7. Final Fantasy XIII. Final Fantasy XIII is controversial. Let's be specific about why. Square Enix made this game to flex. They wanted to show what the PS3 could do. Visually, mission accomplished. The game looks like a Pixar film from 2010. Graphics that hold up today, not exaggeration. The paradigm shift system is real-time combat, where you switch between presets of your party. You've set up Commando, Attacker, Medic, Healer, Ravager, Mage. Mid-combat, you swap between these. Each swap has a brief animation. It's dynamic, flashy, and works mechanically. But here's where it gets messy. The game is aggressively linear. For the first 20 to 30 hours, you're in corridors, walking forward. No exploration, no choices. You're on a railroad and the game is driving. And the story? It's trying to be epic and philosophical, and it gets lost in its own mythology. There's foci and Lisi and Cocoon, and honestly, the plot becomes incomprehensible. Here's the wild part, though. The later chapters become good. Once you reach Grand Pulse, the world opens up. You can explore. You can level. The story finally makes sense. Suddenly, you're playing a legitimate, great JRPG. So, Final Fantasy XIII is this weird experience where the first 30 hours frustrate you. Then the last 20 are genuinely solid. It's not great as a whole, but the ending works.
Number 6. Dragon's Dogma. Dragon's Dogma is Capcom's answer to a question nobody asked. What if we made a Western RPG but Japanese? Open world action RPG, high fantasy, party-based combat, deep customization. But it has that Japanese design philosophy where developers really thought about what makes combat satisfying. Here's the unique mechanic. Pawns. These are AI companions you recruit and customize extensively. Their appearance, skills, equipment, behavior priorities, you control everything. But here's the wild part. You can summon other players' pawns from an online pool. Your main pawn is your creation, but your secondary pawns might be built by someone else. It sounds gimmicky, it's actually genius. The combat is meaty. You're fighting massive monsters, visibly massive. You're climbing on them, targeting specific parts, knocking them down. There's weight to every hit. Magic looks flashy and dangerous. Enemies are threats, not just health bars. And the world, it's dangerous. That griffin can kill you. That dragon showing up mid-combat can absolutely wreck your day. It takes Dark Souls' philosophy of difficulty where the world is hostile and applies it to an open world game. Also, the story has an interesting twist ending that recontextualizes everything. Won't spoil it, but it's weird.
Number 5, Tales of Grace's F. Controversial take, Tales of Grace's F has the best combat in the entire Tales series. Most Tales games use a TP, technical point system. You have limited magic and special moves, so you conserve them. There's a rhythm. Attack, build TP, use a big move, repeat. Grace's F threw that entirely out. It introduced chain capacity, CC. You have a pool of ability points that recharges constantly. Your big moves cost CC, but CC comes back immediately. So the game is asking, what if you just kept attacking? That sounds boring. It's the complete opposite because now the game demands constant mechanical input. You're not waiting for openings. You're creating them. You're dodging directionally, not just press evade, and feeding those dodges into attacks. Your main character, Asbel, has 2 attack styles, sheathed and unsheathed sword. You're switching between them mid-combo. Here's the thing, this is skill-based. Over-leveling doesn't save you. If you're bad at the mechanics, you're gonna struggle even at normal difficulty. That's the entire point of the system. The bosses aren't bullet sponges with massive health pools. They're mechanical puzzles. You learn their patterns, you adapt, you execute. It's like fighting game design crammed into a JRPG. The story is divisive. Some people think it's great, some think it's generic. Character development, there, but not Persona 5 level personal. But if you're here for combat, this is the peak.
Number 4.
Nier. Nier does something insane. It requires you to play through it multiple times. Each playthrough, the story shifts. The perspective changes. The gameplay genre literally changes. You'll get bullet hell sequences, text adventures, 2D side-scrolling sections. The camera pulls back and you're watching your character from above. And the reason for all this? By the end, you realize the story you thought was heroic might actually be villainous. Director Yoko Taro is known for deconstructing narratives. Nier doesn't explain itself. It doesn't hold your hand. You finish ending A and think you've won. Then you play again and new dialogue appears. New events trigger. By ending E, you're questioning everything about what you just experienced. The combat in ending A is kind of janky, honestly. Clunky action RPG stuff. But that's intentional. By ending D, you understand why the mechanical awkwardness matters thematically. Here's the tragedy. This game sold poorly at launch. Critics were confused, but the people who got it became obsessed. It became a cult classic. Years later, when Nier Automata became a massive hit, suddenly everyone wanted to go back and understand Taro's original vision. Nier proves that games can do things cinema and novels can't. The medium itself becomes part of the message. That's not pretentious. That's innovation.
Number 3. Valkyria Chronicles. Valkyria Chronicles asks a question. What if a strategy RPG played like a third-person shooter? You move units on a grid, standard tactic stuff. But then you select a unit and the camera switches to third person. You're controlling movement in real time, aiming with a reticle, managing cover like an action game. That fusion is incredibly difficult to balance. Too much action and it stops being tactical. Too much tactics and it feels slow. Valkyria Chronicles found the sweet spot perfectly. And the aesthetic? Watercolor art style. It looks like someone took a Ghibli film and made it playable. Gorgeous character animation, detailed backgrounds. The world feels lived in. The story's about soldiers fighting in a pseudo-European war, and it's genuinely engaging. Plus, this was exclusive to PS3. That meant something. This was the reason strategy RPG fans owned the console. Here's what makes it resonate. The story has real stakes. Characters die permanently. There's loss. There's sacrifice. Your tactical choices matter narratively. It's not Dark Souls level punishing, but the game respects your time and makes every battle feel consequential. Some missions are genuinely unfair and can feel cheap, but if you're into strategy games, this is essential PS3 stuff.
Number 2. Persona 5. Persona 5 releases on PS3 in 2017. The console is dying. The PS4 is the future. Atlas could have made this PS4 exclusive. They didn't. 3.2 million copies sold across both platforms. Why? Because Atlas understood something. The PS3 still had people. Millions of people. And Persona 5 gave them a reason to keep playing. Here's the genius part. The social sim loop. You wake up every morning and make a choice. Hang out with friends or go deeper into dungeons. That seems simple. It's not, because those hangouts, they unlock social links, and social links give you mechanical bonuses in combat. Your character development is directly tied to your story choices. Your ability to win fights depends on how much time you spent being a friend. That's structurally brilliant. It makes narrative mechanically relevant. Then there's the tonal whiplash. During the day, you're making coffee with your best friend, going on dates, studying for exams. It's slice-of-life anime stuff. At night, you're literally inside someone's psyche, stealing their corrupted desires, fighting a giant helicopter boss. Psychological horror. The contrast is massive, and it shouldn't work. Usually, tonal whiplash kills immersion, but Persona 5 commits to it so hard that the contrast becomes the point. Life is mundane and weird and dangerous all at once. That's being a teenager. The UI design is next level too. Every menu's animated. Every click has purpose. It's not just functional, it's cool. You want to navigate menus because they feel like you're hacking a system. 100 hours, turn-based combat that feels snappy. A cast where characters have real problems, not archetypes. That's why 3.2 million people played it on aging hardware.
Number 1. Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. Studio Ghibli made a video game, not licensed characters, not a collaboration where they helped. They made it. Here's how that happened. Level 5's Akihiro Hino met Ghibli's president, Toshio Suzuki, through a mutual connection. This was after Ghibli finished Ponyo, when the animation team had nothing scheduled. One meeting. That's all it took for Studio Ghibli to say, yeah, let's do this. And what they made is insane. The opening cutscenes are fully animated by Ghibli staff. Joe Hisashi, the guy who composed Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, wrote the score. The Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra performed it. 20 minutes of hand-drawn animation in a video game in 2011. But here's where it gets emotional. The game opens with your mother dying. Not metaphorically, not off camera after hours of buildup. She saves you from drowning and her heart gives out. Within the first 10 minutes, you're grieving, you're crying. You haven't even hit a save point yet. Compare that to Final Fantasy VII, where Cloud's backstory trauma lands after 40+ hours of buildup. Ni no Kuni does it in the opening. And because Ghibli's animators, because Hisashi's composition, because the Tokyo Philharmonic are all involved, you feel it in your chest. The entire game is structured around that grief. You travel to another world to save someone's mother because you're trying to save your own. That emotional core never lets go. The combat's real-time and flashy but serviceable. It doesn't need to carry the game because the narrative does. Result: 1.4 million copies worldwide for a JRPG with zero franchise name recognition. That's proof that emotional design beats mechanical complexity.
So here's what happened on PS3. Developers faced impossible budgets, aging hardware, pressure to innovate, and instead of playing it safe, they broke things. Some experiments worked. Ni no Kuni proved that cross-media collaboration could birth masterpieces. Persona 5 showed that social sims could define a generation. Some experiments failed commercially but succeeded artistically. Folklore, Resonance of Fate, White Knight Chronicles, games that swung wildly and missed the mainstream but inspired cults of devoted fans. And that diversity, that willingness to take risks, that's what made PS3 special for JRPGs. Not every game was perfect, but every game was trying something. That's the retrospective. That's the 20 games that defined an era. And honestly, we're not getting that again. Publishers are too risk-averse now, but for one generation, on one console, we got weird, ambitious, occasionally broken, often brilliant Japanese RPGs. That was the PS3 JRPG era. And it was worth it.